really glad you're here. My name is Mary. I'm an EAP intake coordinator with Ascension Wisconsin EAP. And in a few seconds, you're going to be watching a video with Jennifer presenting information about wellness, which is really, really cool. So, the reason I'm introducing myself is because at the end of the video, you're just going to reach out to either myself or my coworker Sylvia. Let us know that you've watched the video, and then we can answer any questions you have, talk a little bit more about what EAP is and how it's a benefit that you could utilize, and go from there. So right now, all you have to do is enjoy the video, and we'll talk more about how you can reach us. All right, thanks.
Hello, my name is Jennifer. I'm one of the counselors with the Ascension Wisconsin Employee Assistance Program. I want to talk to you today a little bit about well-being and what that means as we're looking for a job, as we're going back to school, just as we're living our life and trying to be our best self. What can we learn about that and how can we maybe improve? Today, my objectives are to try to bring to some awareness where you are right now in your wellness and how would you know? Because what does that look like? What does being well look like? What are some circumstances or signals that maybe you're not well? How do we recognize areas where we're not well? And then how does that affect all of our functioning in all of our life? Maybe take a chance to reflect a little bit on that and then learn about what can we do? What is the next right step we can take? And finally, who can help us? As we go along today, I'm going to be referring to a worksheet that hopefully has been provided to you. It looks something like this. It says My Wellness Wheel, and it has separate boxes for each of these areas where you might want to take some notes, or maybe you can jot down a score or something, maybe a question that you'd like to ask later. So, first of all, I want to talk about this circle. It's what we call the wellness wheel, and it has several different areas of our lives, not all of them, but they try to encompass almost all of our areas of our lives. And to recognize that all of them together add up to wellness. So I'm just going to point out each of these little areas and then maybe what being healthy, being well, being balanced looks like in each of these areas. In our first area, relational, we would see things like relationships where you feel like you have a partner, where they're equal power and where both are being supportive. So there's a give and take, there's compromise. Relationships should feel safe, that you're not worried about mental or physical or emotional abuse, that you feel validated, which means that you feel like someone hears you, that you're important, and that you feel loved, and that you have a support network. Could be a few people, could be lots of people, but the most important is the quality of those people around you that you can turn to when you're having a bad day or when you need some advice, someone that you know has your back. The next area is physical. So, this is having a healthy diet that has fruits and vegetables and protein, having good sleep, and getting some exercise on a regular basis. It means being able to live without pain or having physical conditions that keep us from doing the things that we enjoy or that we would like to do. Making sure that we're getting our wellness exams. So, on an annual basis, going to see a primary care physician and having a checkup, perhaps meeting with a dentist, doing screenings to make sure that we're healthy and hopefully cancer free. And also that our basic needs are being met, that we have a good, safe place to live, that we know that we can get around in the community when we need to, that our personal space feels clean and organized and a place that we can relax. Next is our spiritual area. When we say spiritual, we don't necessarily mean religious, although it can be, but mostly it's about identifying a purpose in life. There's a reason, there's something that I'm here for, there's something that I need to do. Sometimes people find that in a faith or a religious community. Sometimes people find that in a connection to nature, in being a volunteer, in advocating for things that they feel passionate about, in practicing mindfulness and meditation or prayer. Our occupational area is a big one. Occupations can be something where you are paid for employment. It can also be vocational, in that you are a volunteer, or perhaps you have a role as a caregiver that may not be paid, but it is your important responsibility. We want to make sure that that's satisfying, that you look forward to that role, that you feel like you're contributing and that you're making progress, that what you're doing matters to you and to other people, and that wherever you're doing that vocational experience, you feel safe, that you don't feel bullied. You look forward to going to work and knowing that your physical safety and your emotional safety is guaranteed. Next is our financial area. If we are healthy in this area, we're not going to have a lot of debt. Hopefully, we're going to have some savings for emergencies that come along or for a rainy day. We're going to have the opportunity to invest in our future and think about, again, when we might need some extra money, or maybe perhaps being able to plan for helping someone to go to college or helping someone to retire. A big piece of financial is that our basic needs are met, that you can purchase the things that you need and want to keep you healthy and safe. And also that you have consistency, so that you know that money is going to be there on a regular basis and you aren't worrying about that. And finally, mental encompasses a pretty large chunk of our wellness. So thinking about things that we do on a regular basis that keep our intellectual functions sharp. So things like hobbies, maybe taking a class, participating in things that are new and different and challenging to us, being able to recognize the emotions that we have, to be able to use them for information, but to not have them run our life, feeling balanced in our relationships and that we're mostly having positive, healthy feelings. Again, that we feel safe, that we're not experiencing violence or threat, that we have a sense of privacy in our life and a place where we can completely relax. On the other end of well being, or the opposite of well being, we might have some signs of stress or trauma. First area being relational. So, socially withdrawing, that means that maybe you don't feel like being with friends anymore, or maybe you don't really have a support network, or the supports that you have are not healthy. In fact, sometimes they're actually leading us to unhealthy habits, or maybe they're abusive to us. Perhaps having poor boundaries, meaning that we don't have a sense of privacy, that we're often in relationships where we're more the taker and somebody else is giving, or the other way around. We feel like we're giving all the time, but nobody's giving to us. Feeling like you can't say no, feeling like people are taking you maybe for granted or even taking advantage of you. and also including those unsafe relationships of abuse. Next is the physical area. So, having physical ailments that may or may not be treated, experiencing difficult sleep on a regular basis, living in chronic pain, having no appetite, or having gastrointestinal issues. For example, heartburn, having lots of stomach aches, having digestive problems, being in the bathroom a lot because you're upset about things or things are not functioning well, having feelings of low stamina, that there are things you would like to do, but you just don't have the energy or you can't go as long as you would like to. So, very quickly, you get tired and you have to stop. If you are unable to access quality health care, perhaps because you don't have good insurance, perhaps it's not available in your community and it's a transportation issue, or perhaps you just haven't utilized what's been available to you. And finally, being in an unsafe environment where your basic needs are not met. So you don't always have healthy food. You don't always have clean water. You don't always have enough clothing or a warm place to sleep. Spiritual is having difficulty finding any joy or happiness in your life. Wondering if there is any order or if there is a God, or if there is a God, does he or she care or exist, or see you? Having a feeling of loss of hope that perhaps there is no meaning and that this is all chaos and that pain and suffering will not end, and not being able to find a meaning in your life. The next one is occupational. So, feeling burnt out in your job or in your caregiving role. Having poor work or life balance where maybe you're working way too much and you don't feel like you have any downtime. Or maybe your personal life is flowing over so much into your work that it makes it hard for you to focus. Or maybe you're having problems at work because there's so many things in your personal life that are coming over and interfering. Having a workload that is way too much, more than you can manage, more hours than you can manage, or perhaps too many responsibilities. Feeling unsafe, so perhaps bullied in the workplace or harassed or unappreciated, that what you're doing is not seen or it's not important. Just not being happy in the job that you do, not finding any joy in it, and perhaps even feeling really lost as to what job should I even be doing? I don't know. I don't like this one, but I don't know what else I would do. Next is financial. So, having lots of expenses, or perhaps something that just occurred that was an unplanned emergency. For example, really high medical bills, not having any emergency savings. So, living paycheck to paycheck, worried that if anything else came up, how would you pay for it? Perhaps slipping in your ability to pay your bills regularly or on time, not being able to afford the things that you need or your family needs, avoiding opening bills, not looking at credit card statements because perhaps the payments are too high and you can't afford them, or constantly borrowing from friends or short term loans, or even gambling, hoping that you can make some extra cash to get ahead. And finally, in our mental health, feeling agitated, jumpy, restless, feeling like we're unsafe or vulnerable, like always looking over your shoulder or feeling scared and nervous that you are not in a safe situation, feeling angry on a regular basis, maybe feeling snappy or like you're going to lose your temper, or feeling a grudge, or maybe you're feeling overly guilty and sad. Sometimes people feel what we call a lack of empathy, or they just don't care so much anymore, or they don't really feel a lot of care for other people, or they can't get up the energy and the motivation to start anything or finish anything. Sometimes it includes thinking about hurting ourselves, which may or may not include ideas about suicide. Or often for people, it's just thinking about dying or a way to escape. Feeling exhausted, even if you've gotten good sleep, and dealing with past and present trauma situations that may have happened in your life. So, as we look at this wellness wheel of all these different areas, recognizing that if any one of these areas is slipping, we can become unbalanced. And often it indicates that our self care is lacking. And like this poor flat tire, if any one part of our wellness wheel is not where we'd like it to be, the whole wheel is affected. Everything is not functioning at its optimum level. But the good news is, even if we take small steps in any one of these areas, we can make the whole wheel work better. So, how do we do this? How do we move from a place of stress to wellness? Here are a couple of things that might be happening. So, is this stress or wellness? Sometimes anxiety looks like this. As we mentioned, feeling nervous or restless, feeling like you're going to explode, feeling like your heart is racing and you're having a hard time breathing, maybe even feeling panicky, feeling sweaty all over, having a hard time focusing, your mind racing all over the place, feeling sleepy but not being able to sleep, sleeping but not feeling rested, kind of shutting down and checking out from life, and avoiding situations because they're just too stressful. Sometimes depression can look like this: feeling sad or crying, feeling empty or just kind of blah, feeling guilty or helpless, feeling very pessimistic or just negative about everything, that things are never going to get better and that maybe you feel like you can't do anything right. Losing interest in things that you used to enjoy to do, feeling like you can't eat, or maybe you're eating to make yourself feel better, feeling like you can't sleep, or maybe sleeping to escape. And as I mentioned before, thoughts about death or suicide, or particularly just running away, just escaping. It's important to realize that you can have any of these symptoms or one of them. It doesn't mean that you have a diagnosis of anxiety or depression. It might not. But it's very common throughout our adult lifetime that we will experience some of these at some times. It's just important for us to recognize them and then hopefully to try to do something about it. It's also important to realize that stress and wellness are often very closely related. So, for example, in our work and school life, both good and bad things happening to us can really weigh on us. So, for example, if you're getting a new job or you're looking at going back to school, that can be extremely stressful. And yet, it's something that we choose and that we might look forward to. It can also be stressful to leave a job, even a job that we didn't enjoy. But it can be hard to say goodbye to coworkers. It can be hard to say goodbye to a routine that we knew. It can also be hard to lose a job, or to have to move to a new location, or to lose a colleague because they've been downsized, or they took a new job, or perhaps they've become ill or died. Graduation is a great thing, but it's also very stressful because that means we're leaving people that we knew at school. We're leaving something that we felt comfortable with, and now we're going into something that we don't know about, perhaps a new job or perhaps more school. It can be very exciting to look for a new job, but interviewing is stressful. And then how do you decide on perhaps multiple job offers? Great things, but you have to pick. It's also very stressful to be unemployed or to be underemployed, meaning you have a job, but not one that you enjoy or one that isn't making enough money to meet your daily living expenses or your debts. Getting a new supervisor, a new boss, a new teacher, or brand new people to work with can be very good and exciting, but can also be very stressful. Not feeling appreciated in your job, not feeling like your opinion matters, or on the other hand, getting a lot of pressure because perhaps your supervisor sees that you really have strengths and abilities. And so everything gets dumped on you. And now you're the one that needs to make big decisions and you're not quite sure what the right answer is, or it's just getting to be too much. Again, we can also have stress and wellness happening at the same time in our relationships and in parenting. So, for example, starting a new relationship, very exciting, can also be very stressful because it's a whole new schedule, it's a new person. It probably is going to take a lot of your time, which time you might want to give, but then time that's pulled away from other things like perhaps your children or your job. Getting engaged and married, very exciting. Also, a very stressful time to plan a wedding. Having a baby, very exciting thing. Huge life change, lots of stress. On the other end is ending a relationship, even if it's one that you chose to leave, can be very, very stressful. Going through a divorce, or perhaps choosing to remarry or blend families, be very stressful and very wonderful. Figuring out how to co parent with your ex husband or ex wife, worrying about your children or grandchildren, or being able to caregive for them, but how do you fit that in with everything else that's going on? Perhaps going through grief of either illness or death, or perhaps a choice that has led a family member, for example, to move across the country and you don't see them anymore. Dealing with your own mental illness or physical disability, or perhaps that of a loved one. First, feeling guilty or perhaps sorry for the changes that are happening in their life and the struggles they're having, or perhaps you're a caregiver for them and it weighs very heavily on you. Having arguments or going through changes in your parenting role, or perhaps having a fallout with one of your brothers or sisters or your child. Abuse or trauma either in the past or currently in your family, or maybe going through some legal struggles. And finally, substance abuse and other addictions that might be happening within your family or in your relationships. All can be very stressful and can impact your own wellness. And recognizing that it's not just a one time thing. Often we are experiencing what we would call chronic stress. So it's multiple things in multiple areas that all add up. And it's not any one little thing that seems to be the straw that breaks the camel's back or the last thing that really hits your nerve, but it's all of the things. So let's take a quick little look at how you're doing. If you haven't been looking at your worksheet, please get it out at this point. And I'm going to give you a chance to go through and give yourself a little bit of a rating in each of these areas. And again, I encourage you to write those down and maybe to write a couple notes about why you gave yourself that rating or some things that you want to ask a question about. So let's look first at our relational. And in this rating, if you gave yourself a 3, you'd be saying, I'm doing great, feeling very healthy in this area of my life. If you give yourself a 2, you'd say, kind of in the middle. Some areas I probably need to improve, probably some areas I might be struggling a little bit, but also some good things. I have some strengths. And finally, to give yourself a 1 would mean I'm really struggling in this area. So some questions to consider would be, do you feel safe? Do you have support in your life? How are your kids doing, or your parents, or your brothers and sisters? Next, let's think about occupationally. How are you doing in work or in school? And consider again the rating scale of 1 to 3, 3 being doing really well. How about financially? How do you think you're doing? In the area of mental wellness, where's your stress level right now? Are you relatively worry free? Is your anxiety pretty low? Most days, are you pretty content and optimistic? How about in your spiritual life? On a regular basis, do you have some practices or ways to connect with a faith community or to ground yourself and be clear as to what is your purpose? And physically, how are you feeling? Are you able to do the things that you enjoy? Do you have the energy? Do you have the interest? Do you have the stamina? And are you safe? Do you have the physical things that you need in your life to live? And also, are you physically safe where you live? Is your home in good repair? Is it clean? Is it organized? And do you worry when you're in your home if you're going to be safe where you live? These are questions to consider. So, when we go through an exercise like this, sometimes it's very easy for us to get overwhelmed. And you might say, oh, my wellness wheel is not doing well. It's looking like this guy, pretty flat. But remember that the positive thing is that if we make a small change in any one of those areas, we can affect the whole wellness wheel. It's very normal for us to experience stress at different points in our life. And it's also very normal sometimes to feel overwhelmed. There are things that we can do. And so I introduced to you the idea of doing the next right thing. And what does that mean exactly? It means that we break things down into smaller chunks to manageable pieces. It means that we narrow our focus onto what is right in front of us. We don't have to do all the things, we don't have to figure them all out right now, but we need to just get through this moment, this task that's ahead of us, this next right step. And to remember that even tiny adjustments can lead to huge changes. So, how do we do that? How do we find that next right step? Breathing intentionally is a big one. So, one of the things that we do when we are stressed out is we will often hold our breath, or we will breathe very shallowly, meaning that we don't take in a full breath into our full lung capacity. We're breathing short, little, small breaths. So, we encourage you to take belly breaths where your belly is actually extending because you're breathing so deeply. To take a minute and take a time out. It's okay for you to identify that you need to step away, that you need to think through things, that maybe you need to get a hold of your emotional reaction before you re-engage. To notice what is going on right in this moment. We call this grounding. So, having awareness of your physical self, your internal self, and your surroundings. Taking a moment to be grateful. We have lots of struggles. We will always have some struggles in life. And there's always something to be thankful for. So trying to balance out. There are some struggles, there are some hard things, there's also some good things. and being able to bring a moment of peace or well-being into your day, whether that's through mindfulness or just taking a moment to appreciate your life. So the next right thing is a strategy that where we could look ahead and see so many things. They could feel like a mountain that we have to overcome. But it can help us get motivated if we look at those tasks on a list. We see all the things we have to do, but now we zoom in and we get very focused on right now in this minute. What is in my control? And what is the next right thing I need to do? Is there something I need to do to take care of myself? Is there something I need to do for my family? Is there something that I need to do to make my life better in work or in my finances? What is that? And now I need to do it. And when I accomplish that, now I do the next one and the next one. So maybe talking to someone would be one of your next right steps. Maybe somebody that doesn't know you personally, somebody that would keep everything you talk about private, someone that has some ideas and experience that they might make some suggestions to you about things that you could do differently. It could help you get organized. It would help you know what even is my next right step. And then can hold you accountable and say, okay, you decided to do this. How's it going? How's that working for you? And I would encourage you to take advantage of a wellness chat with a counselor at our Ascension Employee Assistance Program. We recognize that in any time that our life is changing, including going back to work or going back to school or trying something new, that it can be very stressful. And being able to talk through with someone to make sure that you're keeping in balance and that you're being healthy can be very helpful. But sometimes people get in their own way about this because we worry that, oh, is it really that bad? And what if I talk to a counselor? Like, what are they going to try to convince me or persuade me into something that I don't feel comfortable with? Am I crazy? My family doesn't really believe in doctors or counselors or therapists. We keep everything to ourselves. So, what if people know that I go and talk to a counselor? What are they going to think about me? I'm going to wait until it's really bad because I'm not that bad right now. Or maybe you feel like, oh my gosh, if I started talking to somebody, I feel like everything would start dumping out. And I don't know if I could ever pull it all back in. I don't know if I'd ever get back to normal. I challenge you in all of these that these are what we call stigma. Stigma are things that sometimes we get outside of ourselves that tell us you don't need help or you shouldn't get help or there's something wrong with you if you need help. But often the stigma is inside ourselves that we think we're just going to figure it out on our own and then we don't need anybody else to help us. I encourage you to look through some of those things in case those speak to you. Today, we talked a little bit about what does well-being look like. We talked about some of the circumstances and signals that might indicate that we're not in a good place. We also talked about how that affects everything and can make our wheel run flat. Hopefully, you had an opportunity for some self-reflection on your worksheet and had an opportunity to think about what might be your next right step. And part of that might be identifying who can help you, including the counselors at the Ascension Employee Assistance Program. As part of your project, we need you to circle back with your counselor and let them know that you have completed your well-being project. And in that you're ready to take the next right step and you're going to do it. This is our contact information. You also will have it available to you with your counselor. If there's anything that we can do to support you, we encourage you to reach out. And that includes just if you have some questions, please feel free to contact us. You will get a live person that will be able to walk you through your next steps. Thank you.
Wasn't that great? I hope you liked the video and got what you wanted out of it. Now is the time where we get to talk with you, and I'm look forward to that. So all you have to do is call us 1-800-540-3758, or you can email if you prefer. And our email is eap@ascension.org. And either way, we'll be able to talk with you. We are available Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And when you call, you're either going to reach myself or my coworker, Sylvia. If you need to call after hours or on weekends, you can do that too. You just need to leave a message and we'll get back to you on the next business day. So what to expect when you call, we're just going to go over that. You watch the video. If you have any questions, if you want to talk more, if you want to schedule something, we can help you with all of that. The other thing that we will do, Sylvia or I will just go over what EAP is and a little bit more about how you can utilize that if you would like to. It's a free and confidential benefit that's available to you through this program. The only information that we relay is just that you've scheduled an appointment with your case manager so that they can pay for the session. Other than that, everything remains confidential. Nothing that you discuss is ever talked about. So I look forward to talking to you, and I hope you have a good day. All right, bye.